Mm, Nacho. All right. Okay. I think we are good. Nacho has studied. All right. All right. Okay. Welcome everyone to this wonderful session for today. I think it's lovely to see you all once more. I'm glad you all are here today. All right. As usual, or as you know, we'll be continuing the series for this week, and we'll be discussing some very, very interesting points, I would say, right? Interesting points, I would say. So, follow me through, join me as we start the session for today. Just a quick introduction for today's session. We have a new guest in the house. I think this is the very first time we'll be having him in the house. So, let me welcome on this session Paul Udomi. Hello, Paul. How are you doing today?
Yep, I'm fine, and yep, it's a pleasure having me here, and um, yep, can't wait to share or transfer the knowledge I have into this topic with you all, and yeah, look forward to that.
Awesome, awesome. We're glad to have you. We're glad to have you. All right. I'll be proceeding to share my screen. Please do let me know once you are able to see my screen. Just a moment. Yeah, good, good. All right, all right. Let me share this. Okay, I think I can have this. And share this. Good. All right. Are you able to see my screen? Hello, Paul.
Yep,
Are you able to see my screen?
yes, I can see your screen.
And you can see the slide on my screen?
Yes, I can.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. That's great. That's great. Let me move this to the right. Good. Awesome. All right. So today we'll be looking at this very interesting topic called automating custom image builds with Azure Image Builder. I'm sure you must have probably heard about the Azure Image Builder before, right? But this is actually a session that is to expose you on what is the Azure Image Builder about. You know, is it something new, right? How does it work? What do we do? How do we go about this? But before I dive into this, I think it's best to introduce myself. My name is none other than Promise Uche Onwachko. Of course, your favorite Azure MVP, and yeah, on this session or in this series we've been having, we've been having such wonderful guests, and today with me is none other than Paul Udemy. So yes, let's dive deep into this. All right. So why use Azure Image Builder? Why do we make use of Azure Image Builder? And I think for me, right, it's the fact that, of course, well, we do almost everything, or Azure has provided this platform for us where we can, build almost everything that we want to do in terms of deployment, in terms of uh, building, in terms of accessing stuff. So Azure has almost everything on its environment. So why not make use of Azure Image Builder, right? And at least be consistent. Be consistent with the services. Be consistent with how you're protecting your images or your deployments. You're talking about efficiency. Imagine having everything on one cloud platform. I mean, how efficient can you be? And still, Azure does support multi-cloud options. So, say for instance, you want to make use of this image builder across, or let's say outside of Azure, on premise or other cloud environment, you can still actually be able to do so. So, Azure has I mean, these are kind of, I would say, reasons why you should make use of your of the Azure Image Builder. One, the consistency. Two, security, efficiency, multi-cloud support. In terms of security, we know one of the beautiful things Azure does for us is that it prompts us for, let's say, when there are updates for things happening, updates, you are being prompted, and then advises you on best practices to take for your for each resource you have in the Azure environment. Here you can see it says pre-install security patches, compliance tools, and monitoring agents. Right. So that's one beautiful thing about Azure. Once you deploy any resource in Azure, check out for best practices. You would get options, you get advices to say, okay, probably it's best you deploy this resource in a zone for maybe if you want to have ensure your resource is always available, right? Or it could be advices to say, okay, maybe migrate your SQL server from maybe the classic vulnerability assessment to the express mode vulnerability assessment, which is storageless. You understand? So that is the beautiful thing about Azure. The fact that you can be able to predict security of your applications, and I think that's something really awesome. So consistency, security, efficiency, and multi-cloud support are good reasons why you should make use of the Azure Image Builder. Now let's proceed on to the next one. Key features of the Azure Image Builder. Yeah, so what actually are the key features of the Azure Image Builder, and why should you make use of the Azure Image Builder? One of the things I know you want to do is, or one of the key features it has, is the ability for custom image definitions, right? You want to be able to say, for instance, I don't know if some of you have seen situations where your organization where you work for would ask, okay, apart from the normal way of building an image, I want you to add some certain softwares in the image, that the image should come pre-installed with these softwares, right? And apart from pre-installing this image, I want you to add some, maybe it could be security hardening, maybe do some kind of security patches or some security configurations on your image, just the way it, I mean, it should just be all in one package in that image, and the image should be ready to deploy to production, right? So this is one way you can do it. You can customize your image definition, right? You can add softwares inside the image. You know what exactly you want image to do for you. Another thing again is the image templates, right? You can then provide a customized template of what you want in your image. So you can see here it says specify source, distribution method, and customization steps. All of these steps you can then list down, and then from there you can provide for, let's say, anyone who wants to actually deploy this particular image. Another beautiful thing, again, as we all know, is that Azure provides us with the DevOps environment, which is the CI/CD environment. Now, your ability to be able to integrate your image building process into the CI/CD workflow is another wonderful key feature for the Azure Image Builder. So that means you're not just being able to build image; you can automate the process using the CI/CD pipelines, right? And then another thing again is you can store and manage your images centrally for reuse. So in an organization, wherever you find yourself, and you want people to be able to make use of, say, this particular image version, right? You can store it centrally. Either you want to push it to your ACRO, or you want to push it to some other place so that people can be able to make use of the images which you built, right? So this is one beautiful key feature for your Azure Image Builder. All right, on to the next one, repository structure. So, so while we are going to be looking into this, we are going to be doing a live demo session for you to see how it's like to make use of the image builder. And this is somewhat how our repository looks like, right? So you can see here, you have the infra, you have the images. Inside of the images, you see it contains the bicep template for Windows 2019 and Ubuntu Pro 2020 22.04 images. And then on the infra side, you have modules which are reusable bicep modules for the image definition and the image template. And then on the pipeline side, you have the Azure DevOps pipeline script that automates the image creation. So all of this you are going to be seeing when we are actually doing the live demo for our images, right? All right. So now we've talked about, will I say, four things here, or let me say three major things, right? Why do you need the Azure Image Builder? What are the key features of the Azure Image Builder, and what the repository structure is like? Now, onto this, right? Onto this, we'll be looking at what the image definition and template is like, right? So for the image definition, you want to be able to define the structure of how your image looks like, right? Say for instance, for the OS, are you actually building a Windows OS or a Linux OS? What publisher and what are the offer details of either your Windows or your Linux OS? And then shared image gallery location. That's how you want to define your image, right? And for the templates, remember your templates are things you can reuse, right? So in that template, you want to specify the base image, the custom script for the software installation, and the distribution method. Now, these two forms the base of you building that particular image. So to be able to give some context into how all of this works in the Azure environment, I'll be calling on Paul to proceed from here, where he'll be showing you a live demo on how to actually make use of your Azure Image Builder and what are the things you should look out for. Hello, Paul. How are you doing today?
Yep, I'm good. Thank you very much for shedding more light and providing more details about Azure Image Builder. So I'll be picking up from where uh, Promise stopped.
Oh,
Um, I'd like to go down to the next slide, which is the pipeline configuration. And the pipeline configuration, the way it's set up is that we have different stages in the pipeline. And the initial stage is the build, which builds the bicep code, which is written in the pipeline. And the other stage in the pipeline is the deploy, and the deploy bicep, which deploys the bicep code. And the last stage in the pipeline is the build image, which performs the actual build of the image. So that being said, we'll move
Paul,
to the next.
you want to share your screen so that it'll be easier for you to demo?
Oh, okay, yeah, sorry about that.
Right.
So share my screen now. Please let me know when you can see my screen on your
Awesome.
screen.
Okay.
So are you able to see my screen now?
Yes, I can see your screen now.
Okay, so yeah, these are the stages in the pipeline. We have the build, which builds the bicep code. We have the deploy stage, which actually deploys the image templates to Azure. And we have the build image, which performs the actual deployment of the image, builds the custom image. And for this project, we've decided to go with the custom build of Windows Server 2019. That being said, um, before I go to the repo, I'd like to explain how the folder structure is, which Promise has emphasized. This is how it looks like. Um, this is how it looks like. You have some subfolders in the infra folders, which actually depicts the type of image which you're trying to deploy. If it's a Windows Server 2019, and if it is Ubuntu Pro 2024. And we also have some modules which will be consuming that are reusable modules, which you can use for both the deployment of your Windows server and your Ubuntu um, OS or server. So your Ubuntu image, I mean. So yeah, before I start explaining the whole bit, there are things you need to consider and put into consideration. So for this project, we have existing resources which has been deployed in the portal. And these existing resources are, we have the network resource, which is the VNet, the virtual network, which has been deployed already. And we also have a subnet, which has been deployed as well for this project. So you can actually create a bicycle to deploy these resources. But for this, we are using an existing resource. And also, you need to make sure you have met some prerequisites, which is ensuring you have enough RBAC permission, and also the managed identity which you'll be using for this project. You need to ensure the managed identity has sufficient RBAC permission. That's permission, but generally can actually give it a contributor role. Should be sufficient enough to perform all this task, which will be used by the image builder. So that being said, we'll have to start with the modules, which I'll be using here. So I'm starting with the image definition. Of course, based on the explanation provided by Promise about image definition, um, you need to be able to provide certain things which will be needed or required to build your image. And the image definition is a file. The image definition of bicep is the file that has all the necessary requirements, like the OS type, publisher, offer, and the shared image gallery location. And also, yeah, before I proceed, I'd like to emphasize that we also have an existing resource which has been created, which is the Azure Compute Gallery. So in Bicep, you need to understand how Bicep works for you to be able to understand this project fully. And one of the two things I'd like to list out here, if you're trying to go through this project and understand what has been done, um, you need to understand how to reference an existing resource in Bicep. So for you to do that, you need to um, give the keyword resource the identifier name Azure Compute Gallery. I just used an acronym for ACG. I named it as ACG, Azure Compute Gallery, then the um, API version for the resource which you're trying to reference, and you use the keyword existing, which is how Bicep reference existing resource in Azure, and you also provide the name, and that's how you reference an existing resource. Um, yeah, so proceed further to create the image definition, where you use the keyword resource, image. You can name yours as image definition as your identifier name, and also the API version. Then you provide the necessary parameters, provide the image definition parameter, the location, the properties. Of course, you need to provide the required properties for your image builder. And yeah, under the properties, there's some things you need to know. For you to create your image definition, an image definition sits is it's a sub resource under the Azure Compute Gallery. So that is why we're adding this in Bicep, a parent resource. So this is indicating that it is also part of this parent resource, an existing resource, which is the Azure Compute Gallery. Yep, I can see your hands up, Promise.
Yeah, yeah, Paul, please can you zoom in a bit? It's kind of little small.
Is
Thank
it
you.
okay?
Yeah, it's okay now. Thank you.
All right. Okay. Moving forward. So for these projects, you definitely need to know how Bicep works before you can actually utilize or consume this particular project. I've talked about referencing an existing resource in Bicep, and I'm also going to also explain this part of the code. So in the properties of the image definition, you have to provide the architecture, your identifier, and I'll still come back to this. Um, your offer, publisher, your SKU, and you need to state the OS state, which is generalized because that's what we're trying to do, trying to generalize the image, and the OS type. So you can notice that I actually added some conditions here to this, and also in the publisher, some conditions, the offer, the SKU. So um, this is where I actually declared those parameters or those yeah, I'll call them parameters needed for the properties of the image definition. So in Bicep, there's something called Bicep custom type. Um, it helps you simplify complicated configuration. It helps you break it down so you can be able, you have that flexibility to provide those necessary parameters you need. There are different ways of doing it, but I decided to go with this custom type, which makes life easy in terms of breaking down a particular value or values needed for a particular parameter, like this image definition type. So in Bicep constant type, the way you declare a parameter is that um, you put in your values here. You create, like, use the keyword type and identifier name, image definition type, and declare what you want to have in your custom type identifier. That's the identifier image definition type. So in this image definition type, which is like a custom type I'm creating for this image definition, we have the flexibility of providing the name, the author, the publisher, the SKU, and the OS type. So this publisher, the reason why you're having string with a question mark here is because you're trying to tell it, oh, it's expecting a string and it's a null string by default. It's an optional. You're making it optional. Let me put it that way. So it's not a mandatory parameter if you don't want to provide a value for it. Putting the string question mark makes it a null parameter. Then where all other values are there as your normal string, declaring them as string is expecting a string value. And the OS type is the same thing. You've declared it here. In Bicep, you can declare a custom type of another custom type. So it's more like, if you want to know more about this, you need to go deep down and understand how Bicep really works. We are all familiar with the normal way of declaring a parameter and just consuming it like that, but there's more to Bicep than just declaring parameters. So there's something called Bicep custom type, which is something I'll cover probably some other session, not in this session. So yeah, so in this OS type, I had to declare another custom type OS type and added these two acceptable values, Windows or Linux. So depending on the image definition you're trying to build, could be a Windows or Linux image definition. So that being said, in order to now pass these parameters, in order to use it in this code block, you have to first declare it here, saying parameter image definition, and you're setting it as the custom type, which you've declared down here. And mind you, custom types are always declared at the end of the script of your Bicep script. You can't declare them above. It always needs to be at the bottom, which makes your code arrangement and everything move smoothly and looks tidy. So yeah, you have to do that. After doing that, after declaring the image definition as a custom type, image definition type, you can now consume it here inside this code block and also here. So in our offer, we are saying it's image definition.offer. So it goes to this, which you've declared, image definition, and you said it's a custom type, image definition type. So it's going to be image definition dot the offer, which is here. Then if you go to the next one, which is the publisher, I added a condition here saying inside this value, inside this parameter declared image definition, there's a custom type called image definition type. Check if there's something called publisher and check if it is null. So it goes here, it goes down, check. There's something called publisher. It's declared as a string and it default is null, which is optional. If it's null, leave it empty. If it's null, pick the next value, like a condition. If it's null, if this publisher value is null, pick the next value, which is lab. It picks the next value, which is lab. So for the SKU, it does the same thing. Goes to the top, check this parameter with the image custom type defined. Comes down here to check the SKU and picks this value, which is image definition.SKU. So that's how this works. And The OS type, the same thing, goes to the image definition, checks if the OS type is present, and after checking if it's present, it checks if it is null. If it is null, it picks it's either it provides a null value if you don't want to specify it, or it chooses the next value. It's more like a normal logic where you say if something is true, use this value. If it's false, use the other value. That's how it works in Bicep, and that's why I'm adding this logic, saying if it's null, I don't want it to be null. I want it to be a Windows, which falls back to the option of the Windows, and that's why you're adding this logic here. So yeah, that being said, I'll move over to the image template. So the image template is um, another Bicep file which contains um, customization of your script of the image, and also the base OS and the method distribution method. So there are two things you need to bear in mind. For image templates, you should have in mind, see it as, okay, I'm getting it from a source, and I'm also trying to distribute it. What distribution method am I going to use for this image? There are different distribution methods, but the one I've decided to go with in this project is the shared image, which I have stated here, the type, distribution type, shared image. So before I come to that, before I dive deep into that, I would like to also reiterate that I mentioned earlier that we have some existing resource which has been created, and you also need to give them sufficient RBAC permission for it to be able to work. So um, here I created a managed identity, user and assigned managed identity. I also gave it RBAC permission. I gave it owner role, but that is me giving it an excessive role. Ideally, it should be contributor, which should be sufficient for this purpose. And the other existing resource we have is the Azure Compute Gallery, which is um, our Azure Gallery that will be housing the image definition and the image which we are trying to create. And we also have an existing VNet, which I showed in the Azure portal, this VNet. We have this existing VNet here in the code, and this is how you reference existing VNet, and you provide the scope where that VNet sits, and it sits in the resource group here. This is the resource group where it sits. That being said, I also created an existing subnet, which I mentioned, and the subnet is a sub resource, or let me say is a child to the parent VNet. And yeah, that's what I can provide for now with regards to explaining parent and child, something that I believe anyone who is actually conversant with Bicep should understand how child and parent resource work in Bicep. So that being said, proceeded to create the resource for my image template, where you have the keyword resource, the identifier name, image template, and the API version for the resource which I'm trying to create. And I provided the parameters, the name, the location, and the location in this scenario will be, the value of the location will be the same as where the resource group is. That's why you have this particular um, value, resource group dot location, use the same location as the resource group. That's what this code is trying to tell you. So that being said, you also need to provide some other um, parameters or values for your image template, your identity, which is our managed identity, which has been defined here, is an existing resource created. The ID of this identity that already exists in the Azure portal.
Hi,
And
Paul. Seems we lost you for a bit.
oh,
All right.
sorry,
Listen.
can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear
Okay,
you.
all right. So for the identity, if you want to get the ID of the identity, you need to reference this existing identity.id. which fetches the identity of this existing managed identity which has been deployed in the portal. So that being said, you also need to set the properties. You send the build timeout in minutes to be 120. Yeah, just to set a disclaimer, building an image can take 1 hour or more. So, hello?
I think Paul's network has restarted.
Yep,
Hi,
I'm back now.
Paul.
Yep.
All right. Okay.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know. I don't know why it's tripping.
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah, you need to set the properties of your image templates and set the build timeouts in minutes to be 120, which is approximately uh 2 hours. And you need to provide a source. Where are you getting this image from? We're getting it from the marketplace, which is a platform image, and we are providing this code block. If you can recall, um, I've spoken about this TypeScript in image definition. You're also going to do it for your image template to provide the values. So the same the same mechanism or the same process applies to this using the bicep custom type of parameter declaration. Um, yeah, you have to do that same process here, providing the parameters, and you also need to provide the staging resource group where the template will be, and you need to provide some other things as well: VM size, VNet, subnet.id, and also the distribution, which I was trying to explain. You have the source and the distribution. The source is where you're fetching the image from. The distribution is how you want the image to be consumed, how you want it to be. So the distribution type is a shared image because, yeah, of course, that's the whole essence of creating a custom image. You want to be able to use that image across board for consistency, for compliance's sake, uh, and for you to be able to manage it efficiently. So you want it to be a shared image type. And yeah, the customizer block is where I'm actually going to shed more light now. This should be your focus, where the real thing happens, the main excess of you trying to build a custom image. You need to focus on this customizers part because that's like the key feature why we are doing this whole image build process. So the customizer block is actually declared as an array because it has different custom scripts which you're going to write, or let me say different customized scripts which you write, and which will determine how you want your image to be by putting certain configuration, enabling different features, disabling some things you don't want to see in the image, installing some packages you want to see present in your image. So that being said, I'll move over to the main file, the folder, which is this. So the main driver for this entire project when you're running your pipeline is this. These are the two main drivers. For Windows, this is the driver for Windows, your Windows Server 2019. So the main driver is the Win 2019.bicep. And in this bicep folder, we'll be referencing our modules, which are this image definition and image templates in our modules. But before doing that, we need to declare some parameters, some declared as param, the keyword param, which is a parameter, and the other ones are declared as variable, providing values for those for certain names or parameters we need in our bicep file when creating the image. So that being said, here I declared certain parameters for my environment, and in Bicep, you can actually set what you want as allowed values for your parameter environment, which is MP01 and PR01. Those are the allowed variables I want for the environment naming convention. I only want these two values to be allowed, and also declared a string and gave it a default value here for the sake of this project. My main focus here is the Windows Server build image process. So if I was in any other image like Linux, I'll definitely not set the value to be this. I'll definitely leave it as a string and pass it in in my pipeline, depending on how I want it to be. So my target scope here is the resource group. Um, and the resource group is an existing resource group, which is this. So that being said, um, in my image definition module, in my Windows 2019.bicep file, I had to reference the modules which we've created. The image definition module, that's the keyword module. This is how to reference a module in bicep. Module, the identifier name, and where the module is stored. So the image definition .bicep file is stored here, which is present in our module folder. And I provided the missing parameters, because in an image definition, if you go back, the parameters are not provided. They're not provided, and I had to provide them here. And this is just me trying to focus on the Windows um, Server 2019 image build. Ideally, you shouldn't provide value. It shouldn't be encoded like this. You should pass it in as a parameter and call it from a declared variable, or you could use pipeline variable group or whatever secure way of parameter passing you want to use. That being said, you also need to call the module for your template, your image template, and we have our modules created already here. And if you can recall, I mentioned something about customizers, which is this. That would be where I would want you to pay attention to. Um, Going back to this, our image template has something called customizer, which is an array. Um, this customizer as an array is where you put your customized script, where you want to do certain things, different things. You would want to enable your PowerShell TLS 1.0, 1.2. You would want to do your enable Cipher suite. You want to disable some Cipher suite as well. There are other things like installing your nuggets, which would see disabling SSL secure shell, SSL 3.0, disable hashing function. There are different things you can do in your your customized script or your customizer. You can also see here, I tried to install .NET version 4.0 feature, and I also tried to install Windows feature 64. Um, what else? There are different things you can do. You can install any package you want using the customizer, which you want to see in your image builder, your image, your custom image, which you want to see in your custom after building the image. So that being said, um, yeah, just feel free to go through the repo and check different things you can do with your customizers. I would have loved to dive deep and explain everything in details, but I don't want to spend much time explaining just customizers. Yeah. So that being said, we'll move over to the pipeline. This is how the pipeline looks like. Yeah, I just added this just in case we want to like update our Azure Image Builder um, version. So probably we just want to add something and update it. We schedule it like a cron job to run 14th of every month, um, 14th of August to start with. So um, yeah, then the parameters, declare some parameters, and yeah. Um, so let me just explain this Azure pipeline YAML in details. You have the cron job, you have your parameters, you have to declare some. I declared some parameters. Um, I also declared some variables as well, which I'll be using. And some of the variables I declared is the image template name, provided the value, the file to run. If you can see the logic I used there, pointing it to the source directory, and also telling it what to run, which is the parameter.image.bicep. So if you go back to your parameter section, you have the image parameters declared, and by default, it's picking this. image parameter, and that's the default value I've set for this. So after declaring your variables, providing the file to run, the image template name, the version, um, added some conditions to say if you click on the beta, you're deploying the non-prod environment. If you click on the stable, that means you're deploying to prod environment. And bear in mind that I also made use of a self-hosted agent. I did not make use of the free agent provided by Azure. It's just part of the learning process, me trying to understand how the self-hosted agent works and how you can use it. So I created a self-hosted agent, DSHA. You create your self-hosted agent and provide your subscription ID, your service connection. The service connection allows you to deploy things into the Azure resource from your DevOps portal. Uh, yeah, so for the stage, we have the build stage. The build stage is what builds your bicep file. And um, the way it works for this stage, um, I ensured that I copied the files, all the files we have here from the source directory to the active file staging directory. And after doing that, proceeded to do the bicep run, the bicep build. This actually builds the file when 2011 2019.bicep. Um, After doing that, the ideal thing is for Azure Image Builder, you can't run using the same template twice. You can only use that template once. For every time you want to run a build, you have to delete the image template and create a new one because you can't do something they call in place update. So in place update is you have an existing um, resource and you're trying to like modify it or update that resource. You can't do that with image template. You have to delete it and do perform a new run, recreate the template and add the new version of of your image which you're trying to create. So this stage I had to comment it out. It's a work in progress. Something I found out. I noticed that I had to go to the portal to delete the image template manually, then try to perform the pipeline run. So I'm trying to automate these bits, and that should be done pretty soon, almost there. So skipping that, going to the deploy. What this deploy will do is to deploy the image template. So after the cleanup stage, it deploys the image template, and it also goes to run this file, which is our file to run, and also some parameters which is needed like the placeholder.json and the version, the environment, and the image name. So does that. Then the last stage, which is the build stage also runs the um, bicep file and also tries to build the image using the provided um, values like the template name, which is declared in the variable section of this YAML script, and also the resource group where you want to deploy the image to. And yeah, these commands are the commands to run your um that the commands that are used to create your image when you the build image stage where you're trying to build your image. These are the commands you need to run in order for you to deploy your image. So that being said, I have like an active pipeline running. So it takes about 1 hour. I had to okay, let me refresh this. Yeah, you can see it takes about 1 hour, 3 minutes, or let me just say 1 hour. It takes an hour for it to deploy fully. So I actually started running this pipeline before the demo. So we can actually see it in real time. Um, Clicking this, you have the bicep build, the build bicep, the deploy bicep, and the build image. So this builds the bicep code, more like your bicep validation. This deploys the image templates. This stage deploys the image template. After deploying the image template, then this actually builds your image. So going to the Azure portal to see what has been deployed. These are the resource group, which I mentioned. The existing resource group are this and this. And inside these two resource group, I'll be telling you what you are expected to see. So while creating your image, your custom image, or while Azure Image Builder is running, there are some resources it creates. to achieve this process, like to create your custom image. There are some resources it creates, and those resources are what Azure uses in the backend. And mind you, Azure Image Builder also makes use of a backend resource, Packer. It uses Packer at the backend to create your image as well. So um, that being said, I've mentioned this resource group, which has your virtual network and your subnets. The main focus should be this gallery resource group. The gallery resource group is where you have different versions of your image. And as you can see, I've been doing a lot of demo just to deploy different version of this image I'm trying to create. So you have your managed identity here as well. The managed identity I used in um, managing the Azure Compute Gallery and um, the image definition and every other resource required to build your custom image. This is the image template and also our image definition, and this is our Compute Gallery. So clicking on our Azure Compute Gallery, which is this, if you go to the definition, this is our image definition, beta, which is non-prod. You have this. This is our latest run because looking at the time, it's completed the build of this particular image version. This is our recent run. So you get to see your image version here under the Azure Complete Gallery and the image definition under the Complete Gallery. You get to see your image versions here. That being said, just a quick one to wrap up. I'll try to create a VM from this, and I'll put the VM here. Let me just leave it here, and I'll name it as maybe um, Azure Support VM, and we have our um, location to be UK South. I don't want availability zone. I don't need it, and I'm making use of the newly built image version. And you have your size, provide any size you want, any SKU, and yeah, I'll do this as Paul and provide a password as well, and allow ports, the default ports, creating a Windows server. Yep, yep. Clicking the check boxes. You have a default to be this. I can change this storage to be standard. Yeah, I think this is fine. Next is networking. Can decide to use the Azure Image Builder network, virtual network as well. Use the subnet as well, and try to create a VM. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to test if the image we created, if that image actually works. So I'm going to validate the validation passed. I'm going to try and create a VM from that newly built image, which shouldn't take time. So it takes about a few minutes. I'll duplicate this. Okay, so I'll go to virtual machines. I should have this Azure Support VM. Refresh is still creating. So while that is creating, I just want to show you how the pipeline looks like. Clicking on this, click on Run New. You can see how it is. If you click on Beta, that is non-prod. Stable is prod. The image which you're trying to deploy, if it's a Windows server, you click this. If it's a Linux image, you click this, and the stages are already there in the bicep YAML script, which is the stages: build, deploy, and build stage. So those are the stages. That being said, go back to the create VM, see what's going on. So it's actually trying to create the VM. Refresh. still creating, so we need to give it a few more minutes. Okay, yeah. So if I click on this, oh, why is it not? Yeah, you can see it's running. So if I click on my Azure Support VM, which I created from the image, you can see the image is using. This is the image is using. It's not using the image from the marketplace. It's actually using the image we created from the image definition. This is this is the image Windows 2019, Windows Server 2019, and it's from the image definition. You can see it's fetching it from our Azure Complete Gallery image definition. That's where it's fetching it from. So let's try to log into the server now. Let's copy this. Come on. And I'll just try to RDP into it. Oh, okay, I'll just type 20.68. So, yep, I'll provide the credentials. And I click on OK. Yep. Yeah, I'm able to log into the server now. This is the server in question, as you can see. I'll try to move it to the center. Still coming up. Just to prove to you that those customizers which are in the pipeline actually worked. I'll try to show you something real quick, and that will be the end of the project demo. Still loading, just hold on. So go to the server manager. It's slow because I did not choose a VM with a high SKU. And this is the first time we're logging into our custom image. That's why you're seeing this first process of it trying to boot properly. So click on add rules and features. Okay, still loading. You have to wait for it to load. So you just try to add roles and features, and in the process of adding roles and features, you can see some of the default things we've enabled using our customizers. So when you click on the roles and features, you can see when I try to click next, next, and next, and next, you can see some of the things we've enabled. We've enabled the .NET 4.7 version. And if we go back to our customizers in the repo, you have the, let me just search for it, .NET. You have the .NET 4.7, which we added using the customizer, and is visible in our image, which is there. So we also have enhanced storage installed, and we have some of these other things we added. We have PowerShell. We added some PowerShell, and yeah, and the WoW supports, WoW 64 supports. We installed that as well using our customizer. So this is how you build your custom image. After building your image, you try to create a VM just to ensure it works perfectly as expected. And yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much for this, Paul. Do we have any questions for Paul today? Do we have any questions for Paul today? All right. Well, I want to believe that the silence means that everyone did understand Paul's explanation and that it was a wonderful session. So, before we round the session off for today, I'd like to encourage every one of you who hasn't taken the time to join our meetup group and our LinkedIn page. I'd like to encourage every one of you to check our meetup group. You can find us on the meetup group. You can find us, just search for Azure Infrastructure. Maybe I share my screen. Yeah. So here you can search for Azure Infrastructure and DevOps support, right? So that's how you are able to find us on Meetup. So once you join the Meetup group, the beautiful thing is that you're going to be updated with whenever we are having trainings. Just like you can see this one, which was booked for today, automating the creation of custom image build using Azure Image. We also have one coming up next week, Saturday, running DeepSeek R1 LLM on Azure Container Apps. So these are sessions you want to ensure that you register for. So you come here and you click on maybe you click on attend, and then it will let you attend the session, and you probably get informed when the session is about to start. So that's one beautiful thing about that. I also like to encourage everyone to also join our LinkedIn pages. Ensure you search for Azure Infrastructure and DevOps Support Community on our LinkedIn pages. And of course, we'll always keep you updated on LinkedIn as well. But for now, okay, I was about to end the session, but I see that Arthur Akiri's hand is raised up. Hello, Arthur. Do you have any question for us?
Yeah, first of all, thank you very much for the training. I really do appreciate. But I have a question. Is there a cost difference using Microsoft custom built image versus your own image? And second of all, what is the advantage and disadvantage using your own custom image? I wasn't here from the beginning. I'm so sorry.
All right. So I think these are one of the things we mentioned in our earlier session. Maybe I should quickly point that out to you. What are the reasons? Why should you actually make use of this? Like I said, this is one of the things we mentioned, and I will just quickly share that with you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yeah, so why? This is why. This is why you actually should make use of image builder. Consistency, security, efficiency, multi-cloud support. So this is just one of this. And looking at the key features of the Azure Image Builder, one, you are able to customize your image definitions, add softwares, or it's just like you see what Paul did. You see that he was able to add and enable some features in the image even before the image was deployed. And then you can make use of it as a template, meaning it can be distributed for use, right? And you have the same standard process you use in creating the image. Also, it's easier to integrate with DevOps, CI/CD, DevOps integration, and then you can also share your images for people to make use of. So these are some of the things we talked about earlier before you probably joined the session.
All right. Thank you very
If
much.
that answers your question.
Yeah. Yes.
Awesome. All right, thank you very much for that, Arthur Kiri. I think at this point in time, we'll be rounding up the session for today, and I don't want to use this opportunity to thank everyone who joined the session and to say, look out for our next session coming up next week. And also, would like to take the opportunity to also thank Paul Udomi, who took some time out to share what he knows about Azure Image Builder today to every one of us. So I want to say thank you so much, Paul Udomi. And to
Thank you.
everyone who took their time to listen and pay attention, I want to say thank you also for taking your time to listen and pay attention. And see you all next week. All right, guys. Thank you once again.
All right.
Bye
Thank you,
bye.
everyone. And
All
yeah,
right.
bye.
All right. Thank you. Bye.
Bye bye.